And it's time now for the press review. Our very own Florence Villemino is here with us in the studio. Hi, Flo. In the wake of Charlie Hebdo attacks, there's been a lot of focus on radical Islam here in France. The right-leaning paper Le Figaro focuses on where you can actually find hotbeds of radical Islam in France.
That's right. Now, we've heard a lot about prisons as being a breeding ground for radical Islam here in France. Well, according to Le Figaro today, another place where radical Islam is spreading is mosques, actually, so Muslim houses of worship. You have to keep in mind, though, that Le Figaro is the leading conservative paper here in France and tends to get quite alarmed about this spread of radical Islam. But it is an interesting investigation today, and Le Figaro points out that radical Islam is trying to grab control and sway moderate mosques, destabilize them, if you will. And Le Figaro actually quotes figures from the Ministry of the Interior that says that 89 houses of worship here in France are in the hands of fundamentalists, and this is an increase, a two-time increase in the last 4 years. So Le Figaro is very worried about this situation and says that things could get worse. To quote Le Figaro, it says that there's a real threat of a radical contagion that's hovering over France right now.
Now, the newspaper also claims that radical Islam is spreading in the countryside.
That's right. Le Figaro talks about fundamentalism in the fields, and according to Le Figaro, radical Islamists are, setting their sights on the French countryside, and this article says that radical Islamist groups are setting up self-sufficient communities in several rural areas in France. Now, this trend is in its embryonic phase. There are only a few instances of it, but Le Figaro says that it's caught the attention of French authorities.
All right, let's move on to something completely different. It's one of my favorite events here in Paris. The International Agriculture Show is kicking off this weekend.
That's right. Now, this is a yearly event. It's huge. Farmers gather at the Porte de Versailles. It's just down the road from here at France 24. It's the world's largest and most important agricultural fair. It's a major event that draws more and more crowds every year. You can see Aujourd'hui en France taking a closer look at the excitement over farms. Why are we so excited about farms? Well, Le Parisien says it's a great way to get some fresh air, first of all. But why is it so popular? Why do so many people go to this agricultural fair here in Paris? Well, Le Parisien says part of it is nostalgia. People are very much attached to France's agricultural history, and that's why they head down to the Porte de Versailles to look at cows and chickens and taste all sorts of delicious regional products. But it's quite paradoxical, according to Le Parisien Aujourd'hui en France, because there's this draw to agriculture and farming, but the profession of farming is actually dying these days.
According to L'Opinion, many people living in France's countryside actually feel abandoned.
That's right. L'Opinion says that people in the countryside feel abandoned by politicians and the administration. And according to L'Opinion, this agricultural show in Paris is opening in a climate of hopelessness and desperation. And all this has led to anger. And you can see the headline on the front page of L'Opinion today that's saying that France, rural France, is on the verge of a peasant revolt, and this feeling of anger has led a lot of people living in rural communities right into the hands of the far-right National Front Party. In another article you can see here in L'Opinion, it says that the National Front has made incredible gains in many rural communities and is likely to do very well in upcoming local elections. And we just got a sneak peek there at a cartoon in L'Opinion. You can see Marine Le Pen dressed up like a farmer. Well, I'll just describe it to you.
Yeah, where is the cartoon? Oh, there we go.
There we go. Marine Le Pen there dressed up like a farmer, talking to the president, François Hollande. She says, well, we're doing quite well. We mainly grow anger, and that's a crop that's doing very well this year. But you could see there another article in L'Opinion that points out what's ironic is that there's going to be a traffic jam of politicians at the agricultural show. So farmers might feel abandoned by politicians, but all these politicians are going to be heading to the Porte de Versailles. Why is that? Well, it's a huge PR opportunity for politicians to see and be seen and to show that they care about farming. So you will see all the familiar faces of French politics heading down to the Porte de Versailles.
Absolutely, and that happens pretty much every year. Finally, a quick word about the French Catholics and dating websites.
That's right. Gliden is a very popular website here in France that encourages extramarital affairs. It has more than 1 million members, so it's very popular, but it's also very unpopular within the French Catholic community. And this article in Libération points out that French Catholic groups are suing Gliden for openly encouraging people to break their marriage vows. Now, keep in mind that adultery has not been illegal here in France since 1975, so it's unclear whether or not they'll be successful. But several Catholic associations have been successful in getting local authorities to pull down advertising for Gliden, except for in the French metro, which is standing its ground, not going to pull the advertisements, and actually will fine anybody 60 euros for defacing them.
Wow, well, actually, I've spoken to a few French mothers who've actually complained about these adverts because, you know, they're saying it's kind of immoral. So anyway, thank you very much for that, Florence Villeminot. That was the French Press Review.